the Green Bay Packers. Last year, they ended with an 11-6 record. Really, coming into this year, the question is this just it? Is this what Jordan Love is? Are we going to see more? Is this just kind of what he's going to be, and they kind of just have to build around him with some better players? Because last year the receiving core wasn't that great. They've never really drafted too many guys, but this year they did go out and get Matthew Golden from Texas in the draft. It was their first wide receiver selected in the first round since Javon Walker in 2002. So it's not a team that really goes out for the top talent at wide receiver, but Love's led the Packers to the playoffs in each of his 2 years as a starter, but it just really hasn't materialized from there. It doesn't help that they are playing in one of the toughest divisions in the NFC. It definitely works against them. But to me, this team almost feels like the NFC version of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just from a franchise standpoint, given the last 15 or so years, they've underachieved for many years, but always staying in contention, maybe not right there at that 500 the way Tomlin and the Steelers have done, but it had always kind of felt the same way with the playoff exits. The last Super Bowl was with the best QB in franchise history. For the Packers, it was Aaron Rodgers. For the Steelers, it was Ben Roethlisberger. Since the Super Bowl victory, they're 0-4 in NFC title games. The Steelers are 0-2 in AFC title games. They've won 11 games, good enough to win NFC South, NFC West, and the AFC South last year. But once they get to the playoffs, it just seems like it's no contest.
Yeah, they have one more playoff games than the Steelers. Steelers are on a really long playoff drought. But yeah, that is a fair comparison, like I said, historically. Yeah, because, I mean, the Rodgers years led to many disappointing endings. Most of those teams are super fun to watch. So yeah, starting with Jordan Love, the question is he a top tier quarterback, or is he just a beneficiary of a really good offensive system input by Matt LaFleur? So you mentioned the Matthew Golden draft pick. I don't view him as like a Jamar Chase coming out of the draft, meaning that he's not an immediate wide receiver one. He could be in a few years, not questioning that. I'm just talking about this first year. Well, going in, like last year, I feel like the Packers had like 4 wide receiver twos on their team. Now I think they have 5 wide receiver twos because I don't think Matthew Golden's like a bona fide star right out of the gate. So yeah, it's very. I do think that's helpful for a guy like Love, who I don't believe is top tier, but is pretty good. But is it enough to contend in the NFC North? Last year, yeah, they ran into the Eagles in the wild card match. That was a tough matchup, so I don't really criticize them too much for losing that compared to the other two teams in their division who lost in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, will Jordan Love need to step up, or are they just kind of content with how they run things and they just kind of hope that other teams get hurt or slip up and they can move on up, which is possible. Last year, they relied a lot on Josh Jacobs because Jordan Love was he threw the Packers threw the third least amount of passes. So the bottom 3 in the amount of passes thrown. And I mean, Josh Jacobs had a really good year last year, especially towards the end of the year. They relied a lot on him, and that worked out well as they were able to go 11-6. 11-6, but 1-5 against the division. That's kind of interesting and glaring, you could say. Got swept by both the Lions and the Vikings. I think that final Bears game wasn't too meaningful, but still, yeah, you got clearly the third best team in the division last year.
Right, and the schedule outside of the division this year is much more difficult than it was for them last year.
Yeah, last year they played the AFC South, and not many impressive victories. They beat Houston in a good game, but other than that, yeah, it's 3 struggling teams. Their defense is also similar to their receivers, where I don't see a weakness on their defense, but I don't think they're great at anything on defense either. I think they're good, not great at everything on defense. Xavier McKinney had a great year last year at 8 interceptions. I really like Quay Walker as a linebacker. Their pass rush is maybe you could say that's the iffiest part, but I do think Lucas Van Ness could step up and be productive. I know you take anything you hear from training camp with a grain of salt, but they say he's looked good in training camps. Maybe that will translate. Who knows? Oftentimes it does. Oftentimes it does, and oftentimes it doesn't. But Yeah, if they can get more out of their pass rush, I think this defense is really good, and there's no glaring weakness, which complements their offense well. So, yeah, they also have a pretty compelling case to win this division. They have struggled against the Dan Campbell led Lions these last few years, not just last year, but even the years before that. Excuse me, they've kind of struggled against them. So they'll have to clear that hump, which is kind of ironic because Green Bay dominated Detroit in the Rodgers era. Yeah, we'll see what this Green Bay team this year.
Yeah. Green Bay, we're used to seeing them winning Super Bowls. You know, they're one of the most historic franchises in this league, and that's why I like comparing them to the Steelers, especially given the recent history with them. I think one of the best bets that you could have had last year in any given game with the Packers was Jordan Love over under on interceptions. Just like for him to throw an interception, that was one of the best bets you could have in any game last year with the Packers, and I took that bet plenty of times.
Yeah, he had
Um,
multiple. He had multiple TD, multiple interception games, like some of
right.
those crazy stat lines, which are fun to look at and dissect after a game. But it can be frustrating as a Packers fan because he'll show signs of looking really well, and then he'll show signs of throwing the dumbest interceptions. Thinking back on that Rams one, was that last year where he just threw it? He was going to
Yeah.
take a safety, and he just chucked it up and came out to be a pick six.
Yeah, Jordan Love might be the Jordan Spieth of the
Yeah,
NFL.
that's a good comparison.
It's
Yeah.
all birdies and bogeys. There's no pars. There's nothing in between. I'm seeing their line at 9.5. I'm inclined to go under here. What are you feeling?
This is the most confident over I have. Yeah,
Really?
I think they're going to be an 11 to 12 win team this year. I think things will just this will. I think they're due. They haven't won the division in a couple of years. I just think they're due to win it again, and then probably get disappointed in the playoffs again. But like, there's really just not many weaknesses with this team. Strengths there are very few, but weaknesses hardly any. And I think that can serve well when there's questions in amongst the other three teams about how good they'll be this year.
Right. It does feel like the other teams in the division, like I said, there's a lot of change in the division, but the one constant feels like the Packers. Not too much is different from year over year with this team, but I'm just thinking if they win 11-6 last year with the schedule the way it is this year, and I even think the Vikings maybe even be better just from a team standpoint, maybe not get to the record that they got to last year. I just think the division's tough. Their schedule's tough. It's going to be a couple less wins for them. So I'm going under on the 9.5, but that's what we can disagree here. Let's finish things up with the Minnesota Vikings. So last year, as I mentioned, they had a pretty remarkable year, going 14-3. Sam Darnold, really just changed our view on him for most of this year. And then those last two games of the year, it was like, okay, that's the Sam Darnold we know. He turned into a pumpkin, and the rest is history for the Vikings season. So he might have shown his true colors in those last two games, but this is a really great roster under a really good coach who won Coach of the Year in Kevin O'Connell. And this offseason, they've spent over $300 million in free agency to reshape both of the offensive lines. I think, or both of the lines, both defensive and offensive. Right guard Will Freeze, $88 million. They went out and got center Ryan Kelly, defensive tackles Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, who are going to be really good complements to their edge rushers Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard. So I really like the way this defense is looking, especially when you have Brian Flores calling plays for this defense, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. But the big story here is there's a lot of pressure on JJ McCarthy, which is crazy because he hasn't played a regular season snap for this team. And it just feels like he's one of those quarterbacks that has the most pressure coming into this season because of what they did with Sam Darnold last year. And if Kevin O'Connell is not able to recreate that with McCarthy, there's going to be real big questions with this team.
Yeah, the Vikings only lost to two teams last year. They lost to Detroit twice, and they lost to the Rams twice, but they beat everybody else. So, and they finished second in their division, even though they went 14-3, which I always talked about before, sparked the debate of do they deserve home field advantage? And I will always say no. Winning your division means something, and when they got destroyed by the Rams in the playoffs, that told me they did not deserve.
I supported your argument right there.
A home field advantage. If it was close and they lost, you could then make an argument because if they would have had home field advantage, they probably could have beat the Rams, but they got destroyed. Yeah. So this is a weird. I've been trying to think of a comparison for this team. They're definitely the biggest. I feel like they're the biggest unknown in the league. Like they could be a sleeping giant that not enough people are talking about because they went 14-3, or they could regress heavily and be around 500, and everyone just kind of forgets about them. I'm thinking this isn't a. There's some things that are off about this comparison, but there's some things that are true. Like go back to like the 2012 Vikings, where Christian Ponder was their quarterback. Not a great quarterback, but you had Adrian Peterson, and that was his 2,000-yard rushing season, and you had a solid defense, and you were able to make the playoffs. I'm not saying JJ McCarthy's Christian Ponder bad, or he will be Christian Ponder bad, but if he is, you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, all-world talent. You have an outstanding defense. Could still be a playoff team, even if McCarthy struggles. But everything is set up for McCarthy to succeed. I mean, you got, like we said, got good defense. Got Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison will be good when he comes back from his 3-game suspension. Their tight end, why am I blanking on his name?
Hawkinson,
TJ Hawkinson, yeah. Blanked on his name real quick. But, yeah, he great tight end. Aaron Jones is getting old, but he's still a solid running back. And they upgraded the offensive line. So, yeah, it's all there for McCarthy to succeed. I don't think I think for me, if we're being realistic, his expectations for this year is don't sink the ship. Just level it. Just keep it level. You don't have to do anything fancy. On paper, we are very good. So if other people struggle, it's not your fault. You just keep it afloat, and then we'll make changes in the offseason to help you out if the 14-3 year was a fluke. And yeah, so like I said, this team's very unknown. I don't think there's a scenario, barring lots of injuries, where they'll be really bad. This team could very easily be 500 or could very easily contend in the NFC.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, does McCarthy really even have to be that good? Like, he's got so much talent around him. Just throw it up to Justin Jefferson, let him go get it. He was the 10th overall pick in last year's draft. He did miss his whole rookie season, as I mentioned, with that torn meniscus that he suffered in a preseason opener. It did end up requiring 2 surgeries. So it'll be interesting to see how he is mobility-wise coming into this year. In college, he was in one of those old 60s style NFL offenses under Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. He won a natty. He also went 27-1 as the quarterback at Michigan. Can he air it out in O'Connell's offense? O'Connell, as we know, he's a pass first kind of guy to set up the run. And that's why I'm wondering. That's the questions around him, is that he was in this Michigan offense that didn't require him to do too much. It was a very ground and pound, get small chunks of yards, and it was just a bruiser of a team that ended up winning the national championship. The one thing I'll say is that there are a lot of good stories, good words out there for him. Watch out if he does well with this team and this becomes a playoff team like I think they will be, and if they win the division, he could be a front runner for offensive rookie of the year because that's what he's eligible for this season.
They do that for NFL too, just like the NBA. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about offensive rookie of the year, we're thinking about Travis Hunter or Cam Ward or Ashton Genty. This guy is in the mix, and he could very well take that home at the end of this year. Obviously, like you said, Jordan Addison is suspended for the first 3 games, so it'll be interesting to see how JJ will handle not having one of those weapons and having a lot of that attention go to Jefferson, and how they have to scheme to get him open or get other guys open with that. Anything else on the Vikings?
Just going over their defense, there were some aspects of their defense that were elite last year, and some that were not good at all, and it wasn't talked about enough. But led the league in turnovers, or tied Pittsburgh for most turnovers with 33. Very impressive. Van Ginkel and Jonathan Greener, talked about earlier, very good at getting to the quarterback. Their secondary, though, did give up the 5th most passing yards in the league, and they really didn't do anything to address it very much. They lost Cam Bynum, I know, this offseason. They did re-sign Byron Murphy Jr., but, I mean, other than that, they didn't do anything, and Harrison Smith is 36 now. So if that doesn't improve, that could be their Achilles heel this year on defense. And but like you said, Brian Flores runs some of the most exotic defenses you'll see. It's kind of fun to watch. If you just watch focus on the defense, don't even watch the offense they're playing. Just look how he's scheming. It's kind of fun to watch. Most entertaining team to watch do that. So they'll probably figure it out, but that is something to keep an eye on going this year.
Yeah. Looking at their line, I'm seeing another 9.5 here. I'm going over on this at plus 120, and I'll just go ahead and say what I think, how I think this division is going to play out. I think the Vikings do win the division. I think this team can be better without Darnold. I think get in some new blood, someone who I think is wanting to prove himself and prove the doubters from at his time at Michigan being just this handed off to the running back kind of guy. And I think he has a really good chance of winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I'm going Vikings to win the division, followed by the Lions, Packers, and Bears.
So I was not high on JJ McCarthy coming out of Michigan. I'm still not high on JJ McCarthy now. But this team will still win 9 games, so I will go with the over. Very rare. Yeah, this will not be I don't think this will be a 3 teams out of this division will make the playoffs again. It'll be close though, because I have the Bears as the worst team, and I have them winning 8 games. We'll talk about the NFC South and NFC West coming up, and that kind of explains why these 4 teams are going to be still have so many wins, even though they have a tough division to play in, because those divisions are a little iffy. I'll just put it lightly. So yeah, like I said, I have the Packers winning the division. I just think they're overdue. They'll be close. It'll be Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, and then Chicago. Very close standings. Love me some NFC North snow games, even dome games. Those are fun to watch. Unfortunately, I don't like this very much, but the Green Bay Chicago series, they play each other twice in the span of 13 days. Kind of wish it was spread out a little more. Those are in December though, so hopefully they're cold and muddy and stuff. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up our NFC North discussion. I will say, I don't know if you mentioned last I saw, Lions are plus 155, Packers plus 240. Vikings plus 300 and Bears plus 550. That kind of goes with what we said earlier, where there is a realistic shot for every team to win this division. Just some have a more realistic shot.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating division. It could go. It might be one of the harder divisions to predict coming into this new season.